Listen to me. Listen close, because if you were here yesterday, you were in the fire. You were putting in the work. You learned how to lock in. You learned how to find that flow state where time disappears and all that matters is the grind, the execution, the sheer unrelenting doing of the thing you said you were going to do. And I saw you. I saw you fight the fatigue. I saw you silence the noise, and you put some W's on the board. You executed, you delivered, you showed up. But I got to stop the music right here. I got to pause the action, because I need to talk to you about the one thing that turns that temporary success into a permanent legacy. I need to talk to you about the architecture of belief and why your execution, your flow state, your 100-hour work week, why all of it, why it's all built on a fault line, a dangerous, unstable piece of ground, unless you get this part right. And I mean really right. You see, most people try to build a skyscraper on a sand foundation. They stack achievement on top of achievement. They get the degree. They land the job. They save the money. They lose the weight. But the whole time, the whole damn time, they still got that little voice inside them, that silent assassin, telling them you're a fraud, telling them you don't deserve this, telling them you're going to mess this up. And every time that voice whispers, every time you listen, you put another tiny invisible crack in the foundation. You can have $1 million habit, but if you have a 10-cent belief system, the house always falls, the money always evaporates, the weight always comes back, because your actions, your doing, can never permanently exceed the identity you hold in your heart of hearts, the person you believe you are when no one else is looking. That's the identity gap, that canyon between the person you show the world and the person you know yourself to be when you lay your head down at night. That gap is where greatness goes to die. You might act like a champion for a week, but if you believe you're a quitter, eventually the quitter wins. You might act like an entrepreneur, but if you believe you're meant to be broke, eventually your subconscious will find a way to sabotage the deal, to miss the meeting, to spend the money, your system, your flow, your grind. It is merely a servant to your belief. And if your belief is broken, you are simply grinding on a path to a predetermined failure, a failure that your own mind has already written into the script. You are working hard to fulfill a prophecy of mediocrity. And we got to stop that right now, right here, today. Because you got to understand, this isn't some soft, feel-good speech about manifestation. This is about structural integrity. This is about the load-bearing walls of your soul. If you're going to carry the heavy weight of the dream you defined in day 13, if you're going to sustain the intensity of the execution we mastered in day 14, you need a belief system that can handle the stress, a belief system that can handle the pressure of gravity, a belief system that doesn't collapse when the first windstorm hits. Look at your life right now. Where are the leaks? Where are the cracks? Where are the ceilings you keep hitting? The ceiling isn't out there in the world. The ceiling is in the lie you keep telling yourself about who you are. That's where the bottleneck lives. That's where the failure originates. And it's time to take that lie to the woodshed and put it out of its misery. So the first step in this architecture work, it requires something more painful than any workout, more challenging than any late night in the office. It requires you to be brutally honest with the man or woman in the mirror. You got to strip away the excuses. You got to peel back the layers of denial. And you got to ask yourself, what is the story? What is the narrative that I have been telling myself that keeps me small, that keeps me safe, that keeps me playing below my pay grade? It's the story that I'm not smart enough, that I'm too old, that I had a bad childhood, that I'm a victim of circumstance. You got to write those lies down. You got to give them a name, because the enemy you cannot identify, you cannot defeat. You are fighting a ghost, a narrative ghost, a story that someone else wrote for you 20 years ago. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a former spouse. But you picked up that pen and you kept writing that tragic ending yourself. And today, that nonsense stops. We are not going to spend 5 minutes crying about the past. We are going to spend 5 minutes diagnosing the internal weakness, the structural flaw, and then we are going to get to work. Because what I need you to understand is that your identity is not a fact. It is a choice. It is an affirmation. It is a conscious, deliberate declaration. You are not defined by the mistakes you made 5 minutes ago. You are defined by the choice you make right now. You are not a person who failed. You are a person who learned. You are not a person who is broke. You are a person who is in the process of building wealth. You are not a quitter. You are a relentless finisher. Say that with me. Say it out loud. Scream it if you have to. I am a relentless finisher, because every time you say that, every time you affirm that new identity, you are casting a vote and you are tearing down a piece of the old crack foundation. And let me tell you something about the power of the vote. Most people wait for the grand theatrical moment, the big win, the breakthrough, to feel like they are the person they want to be. They say, when I get the contract, then I'll believe I'm successful. When I lose the 40 pounds, then I'll believe I'm healthy. That is backward thinking. That is waiting for the result to grant you the identity. Champions don't do that. Champions choose the identity first, and then the results follow. The champion is the champion long before the whistle blows. They are the champion in the dark gym at 4 a.m. They are the champion when the crowd isn't watching. They are the champion in the choice they make about what they eat, about what time they go to sleep. The action is merely the ritual of the identity, the evidence that the belief is real. And the only way to solidify that belief, the only way to make the architecture unbreakable, is through consistent, intentional action. Yesterday, you learned about the 5 minutes of execution. Today, that 5 minutes isn't just about productivity. It's about proving the new identity. When the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and the old self says, just 5 more minutes, that is the old foundation trying to pull you back into the dirt. That is the crack trying to expand. But when you snap out of bed, when you plant your feet on the floor, you are voting for the identity of the disciplined architect, the builder, the one who doesn't negotiate with destiny. When you turn down the easy, greasy meal, you are not just saying no to a burger. You are saying yes to the identity of the vibrant, high-energy person who respects their vessel. Every single habit, every decision, every time you honor a promise you made to yourself, it's like pouring fresh, steel-reinforced concrete onto your foundation, a powerful, undeniable affirmation of who you are becoming and who you already are in your heart. This is why the grind is non-negotiable. This is why discipline is freedom. Discipline is the hammer and the chisel that knocks the rust off the old self and sculpts the new one. The execution isn't just for external results. The execution is for internal validation. You need to prove to yourself over and over and over again that the new narrative is true, that the new belief is real. You can say, I am a writer all day long, but if you don't sit down and write, the action invalidates the word. The action is the evidence, the indisputable proof, the receipt that you are who you say you are. If you tell the world you're a great father, but you don't spend time with your children, you are lying to yourself. You are building a facade, not an architecture, and facades always crumble when the pressure hits. So we're doing more than just planning today. We are establishing the zoning laws of your new life. We are setting the non-negotiable standards that the new identity must abide by. If you are now the identity of a focused professional, then you do not check social media before noon. That is a zoning law. If you are now the identity of a healthy athlete, then you do not skip 2 workouts in a row. That is a zoning law. If you are now the identity of a financial steward, then you do not impulse buy expensive nonsense. That is a zoning law. These are temporary restrictions. These are the non-negotiable commandments of the new you, the rules that the person you are becoming simply cannot break, because breaking them is a vote for the old identity, and that is a vote you are no longer willing to cast. Payments. And let me tell you about the storm, because it's coming. You are going to have a rough day. You are going to slip up. You are going to eat the thing. You are going to sleep in. You are going to let the noise back in. And in that moment of weakness, the old self, the whisperer, he's going to scream at you. He's going to tell you it was all a joke, that you're not built for this, that you're destined to be mediocre. That moment, that painful, self-loathing moment, is the ultimate test of the architecture, and you have to pass it. You don't pass it by crying. You don't pass it by quitting. You pass it by activating the relentless reset. You fall down 7 times, you get up 8, but you get up immediately. You don't wait for Monday. You don't wait for the new month. You hit the reset button in the very next second of choice. If you mess up breakfast, you dominate lunch. If you lose the morning to distraction, you own the afternoon with laser focus. You do not allow one error to become an identity statement. You don't let a flat tire turn into a totaled car. You get out, you change the tire, and you keep moving toward the destination. You tell that silent assassin, I hear you, but I am not that person anymore. You are talking to the ghost of my former self and the new me, the relentless finisher. He doesn't quit for a bad day. This resilience, this ability to snap back, is the steel reinforcement that makes the foundation unbreakable. It's the proof that the new belief system is stronger than the old habits. This is the difference between temporary motivation and permanent transformation. Now, I want you to shift your perspective on that setback you just conquered. Most people see the error as a loss of confidence, a moment of weakness, a crack in the system. The champion sees it differently. The champion understands the anti-fragility of failure. Anti-fragile means you don't just survive the shock, you get stronger from it. The moment you execute a relentless reset, the moment you choose to dominate lunch after failing breakfast, your belief system is strengthened far more than if you had simply had a perfect day. The failure exposed a weakness in the foundation. The reset injected steel into that weak point, making the entire structure more resilient to the next storm. You are not building a foundation that avoids stress. You are building a foundation that thrives under stress. Failure is just a test that, when passed with an immediate reset, acts like the iron rods inside the concrete. Without those rods, the concrete cracks. With them, it holds. This is how you achieve compounding credibility. Credibility is your internal measure of trust in yourself. Every micro win, every small promise you honor, every immediate reset, it doesn't just add to your belief, it multiplies it. When you prove to yourself 10 times in a row that you are a relentless finisher, that trust doesn't increase by 10, it increases exponentially. You reach a tipping point where the density of your belief is so high that the old, weak, sabotaging habits no longer have the mass required to pull you back down. Your history of proven resilience becomes the engine of your future self, a self-fulfilling prophecy of greatness. You got to understand your body, your environment, your life is designed to protect your current identity. If you believe you are financially secure, your environment will start to reflect financial security. Opportunities will appear. Your mindset will shift to abundance. If you believe you are physically weak, your environment will encourage that weakness. The couch will be comfortable. The easy food will be appealing. Your life is not just reflecting your belief, it is actively defending it. And if you want to change your life, you have to change the thing your life is designed to defend. You have to change the core belief. You have to change the picture in your mind, the deep subconscious narrative that is running the entire show. That's the real challenge, the battle of the narrative. And this requires you to be selective, ruthless about the voices you allow in your ear and the images you allow in your mind. You cannot hang around 9 broke people and expect to maintain the identity of a financial architect. You cannot spend all your time talking about drama and mediocrity and expect to maintain the identity of a focused visionary. Your network, your content consumption, your media, it's all a mirror. And if that mirror is reflecting the old limiting self, you got to smash it and you got to rebuild your circle. You need people around you who affirm the new architecture, people who challenge you to build higher, who are working harder than you, who believe in your capacity for greatness more than your own tired self does sometimes. This isn't about ditching your friends. This is about elevating your inputs. It means setting boundaries. It means limiting exposure to the noise. It means actively seeking out the minds that challenge you, that inspire you, that expect excellence from you. Because belief is contagious, but so is cynicism, so is mediocrity, and you have to choose which one you want to catch. Resocialization is a defensive strategy. It is building a fortress around your conviction, a perimeter defense against the forces of comfort and complacency. You spent yesterday in the furnace forging a new commitment to execution, learning how to enter the flow state and defend your time like a fortress. You crushed a goal, you dominated a day, and you proved to yourself that you are capable of unwavering focus. But I need to tell you a fundamental truth about that achievement, a truth that most people will never grasp. That execution, that discipline, that flow is all fragile. It is temporary. It is finite. If it is not built on the single most important foundation of all, the foundation of who you believe you are, we call this the identity gap. It is the dangerous space between what you do and who you truly believe you are. The external effort will always collapse back down to the internal identity. This is why diets fail. This is why New Year's resolutions vanish by February. This is why people revert to old habits even after achieving success, because they tried to build a mansion of success on the cracked, unstable foundation of an old, broken self-image. Day 15 isn't about what you do. It's about who you are becoming. It's the deep architectural work that ensures the empire you're building doesn't crumble when the first storm hits. The reality is that your level of execution will never, ever permanently exceed the identity you hold in your subconscious mind. That old identity, that limiting belief It acts like an emotional anchor, perpetually pulling you back to your known comfort zone, back to familiar failure, and back to the person you were yesterday. The greatest battlefield you will ever encounter is not in the marketplace, it's not in the gym, and it's not in the office. It is the 6 inches between your ears, and it's time to win that war. The architecture of belief begins with understanding the nature of the self. We often define ourselves by our past outcomes, by the mistakes we've made, by the failures we've accumulated, by the labels that other people placed upon us. But that is the definition of living backwards. The truth is, your identity is not a ledger of past events. It is a series of stories that you tell yourself every single day. And the moment you change the story, you start to change your destiny. Today, we are not just adjusting your habits. We are rewriting the master script, the internal dialogue that plays on repeat 30,000 times a day, often without you even realizing it. This internal script, this subconscious self-talk, this is the bedrock of your reality. Let's talk about the difference between a goal and a statement of identity. Most people try to use goals to drive change. They say, I want to get a promotion, or I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to write a book. Those are actions. Those are results. But a far more powerful force is the statement of identity. The person who succeeds says, I am a disciplined writer, or I am a healthy, high-energy person, or I am a professional who creates massive value. Do you hear the shift? It's the difference between trying to have something and choosing to be someone. When you define your goal by your identity, the actions you need to take stop feeling like chores and they start feeling like affirmations. Now, how do we begin to deconstruct those old limiting beliefs? The ones that have been playing in your mind since childhood, the ones that were handed to you by teachers, by parents, by past trauma. The first step is to bring them into the light. Write down all the stories that hold you back. Stories like, I always mess things up, or I'm not smart enough for this level of success, or I don't deserve this promotion. Write them all down. Don't judge them. Don't argue with them. Just capture them. Because these negative affirmations, these toxic statements of identity, they are the invisible ceiling on your potential. The second step in the belief blueprint is to actively, aggressively, and consistently replace the old script with a new one. If the old script says, I am disorganized and chaotic, the new script must be, I am a systematic, focused architect of my time. If the old script says, I can't stick to anything, the new script becomes, I am a resilient person who always finishes what I start. This is neurological warfare. The greatest tool we have in this battle for identity is the repetition principle. Identity is formed in the accumulation of thousands of tiny micro decisions repeated daily. Consistency is the currency of identity. It is the slow, silent engine that rebuilds the foundation of who you are. This is where the execution of day 14 and the belief of day 15 become inseparable. The actions you learned yesterday, the time blocking, the fortress of focus, the single tasking, these are not just ways to get more done. They are identity affirmation rituals. Every successful sprint, every time block honored is a fresh coat of cement poured onto the foundation of your new self-image. You are literally performing yourself into existence. And as you accrue these small successful votes, your confidence grows. But the challenge of this journey is that setbacks are inevitable. You will have a day where you do everything wrong, and in that moment, the old identity, the monkey mind, will whisper its deadliest lie. It will say, see, I told you so, you're a failure. Just go back to the old you, it's easier. This is the critical moment. This is the moment that determines whether the change is lasting or fleeting. This is where we introduce the concept of the forgiveness loop. The successful person does not have fewer bad days than the unsuccessful person. They simply handle the bad days differently. The unsuccessful person allows one bad day to define their identity. The successful person practices self-compassion and maintains the identity. Even when the execution falters, the forgiveness loop is a two-step ritual. First, you acknowledge the setback without judgment. You treat it as a data point, not a personality flaw. Second, and most critically, you hit the reset button immediately, not tomorrow, not next week, but in the very next moment of choice. If you miss the morning workout, you crush the afternoon deep work session. You immediately cast a powerful countervote for your new identity. You demonstrate that one setback is not a full retreat. It is merely a momentary pause. The person who is truly resilient is not the one who never falls. It is the one who refuses to stay down. They protect the identity at all costs, understanding that the consistency of the reset is what builds the muscle of resilience. This is how you make your identity bulletproof. And let me tell you why people keep hitting the wall, even after they master the reset, even after they get back on track. It's because of the subconscious contract. See, the old you, the safe, small, comfortable you, that version had a contract with your deep, quiet mind. That contract guaranteed safety, guaranteed familiarity, guaranteed limited expectations. And your subconscious, its primary job is survival. So it defends that contract with its life. Every time you execute at a high level, every time you step out of your known comfort zone, every time you affirm this new powerful identity, you are breaching that old safety first contract, and the subconscious fights back. It doesn't fight back with physical force. It fights back with crippling anxiety, with sudden overwhelming doubt, with manufactured emergencies and distraction. It tries to pull you back to the familiar failure because familiar failure is safer than unknown success. It's the devil on your shoulder whispering, who do you think you are? You feel that drag, that resistance, that sudden urge to quit right before the breakthrough. That's the old contract trying to reassert its authority. And your job, your sole mission in this architectural phase is to consciously, deliberately, and repeatedly sign a new contract of unbreakable commitment. The new contract says, I am committed to my purpose more than my comfort. I am committed to growth more than safety. I am committed to the relentless pursuit of my vision. You sign that contract with your daily actions. You sign it with your consistency. You sign it with your reset. Every time you stumble until the old contract is nothing but dust and the new one becomes the governing law of your entire being. And once you start signing that contract, once you start believing it, you got to raise the stakes. You got to light the fuse. You got to make it public. I'm talking about burning the boat. Stop playing it safe in the shadows. Stop building your identity in a vacuum. You need to tell somebody. You need to tell your circle. You need to tell the universe who the new you is. You're not doing this for validation. I don't care about their clapping. I need you to do this for accountability with gravity. When you make a public declaration of your new identity, I am a person who is launching this business in 6 months. I am a writer who finishes projects. I am a leader who carries this responsibility. You raise the cost of retreat to an intolerable level. If you only let yourself down, you'll forgive yourself too easily. But when you let your family down, when you let your partners down, when you break the promise you made to the world, the pain of that betrayal is so great that it forces you to uphold the new architecture. It forces you to choose the harder path, the path of integrity, the path of the relentless finisher. Burn the boats. Eliminate the option of going back. Make success the only available route to save face and save your soul. Because this is all about setting the right law of expectation. You don't get what you wish for. You don't get what you hope for. You get what you expect. Your belief system is the thermostat of your expectation. If you believe you are someone who only achieves minor successes, that is your expectation. And your subconscious will sabotage anything that goes beyond that temperature setting. If you believe you are someone who deserves to be broke, you will tolerate circumstances that keep you broke. But when you establish an unshakable belief, I am an absolute high performer who delivers excellence, that belief sets a high expectation. And that high expectation means you will not tolerate mediocrity in your environment, in your results, or in your effort. You will demand more of yourself and the universe. It simply reflects the expectation you project. It's not magic, it's physics. The architecture you build inside determines the world you experience outside. Now, we need to talk about the mindset audit. You're the CEO of your life, and your thoughts are the currency. You got to know where that currency is going. You cannot build a billion-dollar empire with a bankrupt internal balance sheet. The mindset audit is a daily, non-negotiable ritual of conscious self-scrutiny throughout the day. Every time you feel the pull of procrastination, every time you hear that silent assassin whisper a doubt, you must stop, pause, and write it down. You are treating your negative thoughts not as truth, but as data points to be corrected. If you find yourself thinking, this is too hard, that's a crack, you record it. You track the lie. You cannot fix a leak you don't acknowledge. For 1 hour a day, you become the sentinel of your mind, guarding the gates of your identity from unauthorized, toxic, and poverty-minded thoughts. Because every negative thought is a vote for the old self. And you must learn to immediately revoke that vote by replacing it with the new identity statement. This is too hard becomes I am a problem solver who excels at difficult challenges. Track the lies and replace them with the truth of the new architecture. And if you can't find the lie, if the self-sabotage is so subtle you can't spot it, I want you to apply the inversion principle. This is a radical diagnostic tool. Instead of asking, what must I do to succeed? I want you to flip the script and ask, what single action can I take today that will guarantee I fail? What decision would the old, weak, broke, mediocre self make right now that would absolutely crush the new architecture? Would it be drinking that fifth beer? Would it be canceling that crucial meeting? Would it be scrolling social media for 5 hours straight? Identify the single most destructive action, the action that guarantees failure. Now look at that action and run 180 degrees the other way. The path to guaranteed failure is the shadow blueprint of your path to guaranteed success. If 5 hours of scrolling guarantees mediocrity, then 5 hours of focused creation guarantees mastery. The inversion principle lights up your blind spots. It shows you exactly where the silent assassin is trying to trick you. Use this audit. Use this principle to raise your belief density. How thick is that belief in your everyday life? Is it just a surface belief, a Sunday sermon belief, or is it so dense, so solid that it determines how you answer the phone, how you handle a customer complaint, how you respond to traffic? A low-density belief is fragile. It breaks under the weight of minor inconvenience. A high-density belief, that's reinforced concrete. It can handle an earthquake. It can handle a recession. It can handle rejection. The density is measured by your tolerance for non-alignment. How much of your old self are you still tolerating? How much time are you still spending on activities that do not serve the new identity? If you claim to be a focused architect, but you still spend 2 hours scrolling through garbage content, your belief density is too low. That's a structural flaw. The architect doesn't tolerate broken systems. The champion doesn't tolerate half effort. You must bring your belief into the micro moments, making every little choice a reflection of the giant dream. And to defend that high expectation, you must establish the zero tolerance zone, ZTZ. Your zoning laws define what you don't do. The ZTZ defines what you must do and what you absolutely forbid to enter that window. The ZTZ is your sacred time, the first 3 hours of your day, or the 4 hours dedicated to your main income-producing activity. During this zone, you have zero tolerance for non-alignment, zero tolerance for checking email, zero tolerance for outside noise, zero tolerance for low-value tasks. If it doesn't directly serve the new identity, it is a non-starter. It is quarantine. You put a digital and physical wall around that time because that ZTZ is where you build the most important structural components of your empire, where you pour the fresh concrete of your greatest conviction. Anyone or anything that violates the ZTZ is a direct attack on your future self and must be repelled with extreme prejudice. This is the ultimate defense of your currency of focus. Your belief is not built on motivation. It is built on attention. Focus is the most valuable finite resource you possess, and where you put your focus, that is what grows. If you focus on the old narratives, they grow. If you focus on the disciplined, relentless execution of your ZTZ task, the new identity grows. The person who masters their focus masters their belief, and the person who masters their belief masters their destiny. You cannot afford to spend the currency of your focus on distractions, on noise, on low-value nonsense. Every time you defend your focus, every time you honor the ZTZ, you are casting an undeniable vote for the high-density belief that makes success non-negotiable. And to truly build, you must first engage in creative destruction. You can't just build the new house on top of the old shack. You got to tear the shack down. The demolition phase is about actively, intentionally, and irreversibly removing the structural elements of your old life that are incompatible with your new identity. This means eliminating options for failure. It's not enough to try to eat healthy. You must purge the poison from your pantry. It's not enough to try to be productive. You must terminate the toxic relationships that waste your time and diminish your energy. Every time you destroy an old habit or eliminate an old environment, you are pouring an extra layer of belief into the foundation. You are telling your subconscious mind, the bridge is burned, retreat is impossible, this new identity is the only path left. Stop trying to rely on willpower to manage bad inputs. Eliminate the inputs entirely. Creative destruction is the ultimate vote of confidence in your future self. It's the declaration that the old you is officially obsolete. Now, this leads to the ultimate expression of the new architecture. The identity locked willpower is finite. It runs out by the end of the day. Identity is infinite. Champions do not wake up and decide whether they feel like training. A runner doesn't decide to run. An athlete is running. A CEO doesn't decide to lead. A leader is leading. The identity lock is the act of preloading your key decisions based on your new architecture, eliminating the need for willpower in the moment. You decide the night before what the first 3 hours of your day will be, and you execute that schedule, not because you feel like it, but because the person you are, the disciplined architect, the relentless finisher, does that. Your actions are no longer driven by mood or motivation. They are driven by the simple, non-negotiable fact of your new identity. When you face a moment of choice, you don't ask, what do I want to do right now? You ask, what is the powerful, relentless finisher that I am doing this situation? That question locks in the identity. It bypasses the emotional resistance. It turns the choice into a command, and that command is executed without debate. This is the structural integrity of a true champion. They've built a system that guarantees success by making failure an impossibility within their daily operating architecture. We must also talk about the future self contract. The identity gap exists because your present self is constantly compromising the life of your future self. The person who eats the garbage food today is stealing energy from the person who has to run the marathon next month. The person who procrastinates on the deep work today is stealing the promotion from the person who has to present the finished project next quarter. The future self contract is a written agreement where you explicitly define the values and standards of the person you will be 1 year from now, and you vow to treat that person with the respect they deserve. You are essentially time traveling your mind. You look at your future self, the successful, shredded, high-income, focused version, and you ask, what would this powerful person tell me to do right now? They would tell you to put the phone down. They would tell you to get back to the work. They would tell you to honor the time block. Every single action today is either an investment in your future self or a betrayal of them. Stop betraying the most important person in your life. Stop compromising their dreams for 5 minutes of cheap comfort. Your future self is depending on you to be the architect today. Sign the contract and honor your signature with every single action. And now, the final warning, the one nobody wants to talk about, the success plateau. You've done the work. You've built the system. You've achieved the first major goal. You hit the target. You got the money. You lost the weight. And then the danger strikes. The belief system gets soft. You think, I proved it. I made it. I can relax now. That moment of self-congratulation is the most vulnerable moment in the entire architecture because the belief you used to climb to the first mountain peak, that belief is not strong enough to take you to the next peak. You need a belief upgrade. Your vision expands and your conviction must expand with it. The belief that got you to a 6-figure income is not the belief that will get you to 7 figures. The belief that got you a marathon finish is not the belief that will get you to an ultra marathon. You have to deliberately confront the new, bigger doubts that come with bigger goals. You have to look at the new mountain and say, the belief system I built to conquer the last challenge is now obsolete. I need a stronger, more resilient, more complex architectural plan for this next phase. This is the relentless pursuit of the next level of conviction. It means you never settle for yesterday's belief. You are constantly searching for the lie you are still telling yourself about what's possible. You are constantly tearing down the ceiling you just built because that ceiling becomes the floor for the next level. This is the ultimate grind, the meta grind, the grind of the soul. It's not just about the hours you put in. It's about the conviction you maintain during those hours. It's about ensuring that the execution you poured out yesterday is sustained by an identity that is built to last forever. This is your life's work, not just a project, not just a year, but the construction of a self that is immune to failure, a self that is defined by its resilience, a self that simply refuses to be denied. When the world looks at you and sees success, I want them to know that they are looking at more than just a successful person. They are looking at an architect of unbreakable belief, someone who built their foundation so deep and so wide that the victory became inevitable. The work is internal. The proof is external. Go execute today, not just to achieve, but to affirm, to prove to yourself and to the world who you really are, the relentless finisher, the champion, the architect of your own destiny. You have the tools. You have the knowledge. Now you got to have the guts to stand on that rock solid foundation and declare your greatness. Go get it. That's all I got for you. That's it. Now get to work.